I've been using the Tascam Model 12 now for going on 4 years, so I thought this was a really good time to do a long-term review. Okay, the first thing I want to say is it has been very reliable. It has been. But many of you may have clicked on the thumbnail because you saw that there has been one issue, so I want to get right to that issue, and that issue is the power switch. Some of you may have read about this issue. I did experience this after I owned the unit for about 2.5 years. I would come into the studio. I use this thing every single day. I would come into the studio and I would turn it on, and every once in a while the switch would not power up the machine. And over time, this problem got a little bit worse, until finally I decided it's time for me to do something about it. I was able to fix it. I replaced the switch myself, following some instructions that I got from another YouTuber. It took me approximately 1 hour. I ordered the switch from Mouser Electronics. I'll put a link in the description if they are still selling this part. The part was less than $10, I believe. One thing to note, if you replace the switch yourself, is that the original switch is slightly smaller than the opening that it fits into. The same for the replacement switch. So the original switch was held in place by a little bit of glue of some type, like a gel type glue. And that is exactly what I did when I replaced the switch. I put just a small dab of some type of gel glue. I can't remember what, but you can find these in hardware stores or Walmart or someplace like that, or even Amazon. That problem may not actually exist anymore. Okay, maybe this was something that was only found on the units that are older, and maybe newer units don't actually have that problem. Now, what I've done to prevent this problem from happening again, I don't know if it would ever happen again with this replacement switch, but just in case, in order to prevent this from happening again, what I now do is I often power up this entire rack using one single switch that's on the power strip. So I leave the switch on the Model 12, and then I use the power strip switch to actually turn it on. And there's been no problems with that. The switch itself is a hardware switch. There's no software connected to that switch, so that there's no harm, in other words. That switch goes directly to the incoming power. So by using a power strip, it's exactly the same as using the switch as far as the unit itself is concerned. Now, onto the reliability of this unit. This has been rock solid. Again, I come into the studio, I use this as an audio interface for my computer, for my DAW. I use this to record directly into it when I don't feel like powering up my DAW, or whenever inspiration has struck, you know. So I'm using one of these synthesizers here, for example, or I've got a guitar plugged into it and I'm jamming, and then I suddenly want to record. All I have to do is hit the record button right here, and I can capture that audio. I can also do it in multi-track recorder mode, so that it is capturing the individual tracks separately from the overall mix, but it's capturing all at the same time. The faders, the knobs, the switches, the buttons, the phantom power for the microphones have all worked flawlessly for the last 4 years. Sometimes I come into this room and I power up this unit multiple times and power it down multiple times in a single day. It just depends on, you know, what I'm doing that day. I really highly recommend this unit if you are thinking about getting an external audio interface / mixer / DAW controller. I am not affiliated with any company at all. At the time that this video was recorded, I'm not even qualified to monetize or anything like that. That may be different by the time you actually watch this video, but at this time, I am not affiliated with any companies. I don't have any Patreon or anything like that going on. I just do YouTube to educate other people, you know, maybe share ideas. I have owned over the years, going back over 30 years, I started out with a Tascam Porta 05 multi-track cassette recorder, and that worked very, very well. I never had any reliability issues with that. Later on, I got a Tascam 488 8-track multi-track cassette recorder. That's right, 8 tracks on a single small cassette. A wonder of technology at the time. Worked flawlessly, never had any issues. Later on, I got myself a Tascam DP24, not the original one that had the MIDI, but the newer ones that don't have MIDI, that are SD. That has been also extremely reliable. No issues whatsoever. So I can say, based on my experience using Tascam products for the past 30 years, that they have been very reliable for me, and I do recommend them. In another video, I will go into more detail about exactly how I use this device. You may be curious to know how I have multiple sets of stereo speakers set up. I have 2 stereo speakers set up here and 2 stereo speakers set up in front of the computer, and I use them simultaneously or individually depending on what I'm doing, and I'll show you how I have that set up and how I can individually control the volume of each of those stereo pairs using the Model 12. I also do occasionally use the headphones. Sometimes I use the onboard effects, but not very often for what I've been doing here lately. This is a short video. I wanted to get straight to the point, and I hope that you found this video to be informative. Thanks.